when you're going into menopause because you're being treated for cancer, going through cancer, your nervous system is
Yeah.
so heightened.
Yeah.
You're in this place of, it is trauma,
Yeah.
effectively, isn't it? So to then enter menopause as well, when you haven't got
Yeah.
access to HRT to potentially even you out, you're coming at menopause from a place where your stress levels are so high, and that completely affects how you
Yeah.
respond to menopause and these side effects and symptoms.
Definitely. Welcome to Transform Your Menopause with Essex Menopause Coach, the go-to podcast for anyone struggling from peri to post-menopause. If you're feeling overwhelmed, burnt out, or anxious, this is the place for you. Hosted by me, Julie, an award-winning coach who's been in your shoes, this podcast offers real understanding and practical help. I'll tackle menopause head-on with clear, no-nonsense guidance that makes a real difference. So whether you need support, tips, or just a friendly voice, I'm here to help you navigate menopause and rediscover your best self. Welcome back to the podcast. Today I'm joined by Kirstie, who is the Beyond Breast Cancer Coach. Back in 2015, at the age of 35, Kirstie was treated for breast cancer. She now works with women who have completed their treatment and are looking to move forward in life. So whether you're a survivor, currently receiving treatment, or know someone in this situation, I'm sure you're going to find this episode helpful. So welcome, Kirstie.
Hi, thank you. Thanks for having me.
I've been really, really looking forward to this. I'm sure everyone's going to find this episode really useful. Okay, so let's start at the beginning. So you were diagnosed at a relatively young age. Can you share a little bit about your experience and what that was like for you and how that's led you to where you are now?
Yeah, sure. So like you said, I was only 35 when I got diagnosed with breast cancer. So such shock, of course. I mean, my mum had it about 8 years before. So you do have a bit of a sneaking suspicion, obviously, in the back of your mind. But it's still such a shock when you get it. So I went through the whole treatment, and then because of my mum and the fact that I had triple negative breast cancer, which is a quite rare, quite aggressive one, they decided to do genetic testing on me to see if I tested positive for the BRCA1 fault, the Angelina Jolie one, as the people seem to know it. And they found I did have it. So, what followed from that was a double mastectomy and to have my ovaries removed. So the next year at 36 is when I went into surgical menopause.
That must have been quite a shock to the system as well, wasn't it? That's pretty aggressive surgeries.
Yeah, it's a crazy time because you just kind of get your head down and get through it. I wasn't really thinking too much about what were the future repercussions of anything that was being done, because you're just like, right, let's do everything I can, to essentially try and save my life. And then going into surgical menopause at 36, that was definitely a challenge. Yeah, it was really tough. And I just didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what was about to come and hit me. So a lot of different mini shocks coming at me all the time. This symptom, this side effect. Oh, I feel, totally different. And it was a lot to get my head around it.
Do you think you were prepped for that? Like, you must have been told that you were going to go into menopause, but do you think you were really prepped for that side aspect of it?
Yeah, I think that you've got that right. So was I prepped enough? I'd say definitely no. You do have a meeting first to kind of talk things through. But like I said, I mean, my head was just whirling around from all different things. And I don't think prepped. No, definitely not, I'm going to say. All I kind of remember was just before the surgery was done, the doctor kind of poking their head around, the surgeon poking their head around the door and just saying, so just to confirm, you do realise that you'll be in menopause when you wake up. And I was like, yeah, of course, I know that. But the things that, looking back now, obviously I would have thought were important, was for them to talk through, the long-term impacts on my health, some of the with obviously not being able to access HRT, although that has changed for me now. So there's a lot of things that I really, really wish had been properly spoken.
With hindsight, isn't there? Like all the questions that you might have asked or done differently. Yeah.
100%. But like you say, hindsight 2020. And I didn't know anything about menopause at 36 years old. Our mums, I don't think, really talked about, well, mine certainly didn't talk about it a lot. So I didn't know loads about it. So it did definitely feel like I was suddenly plunged into this land where I was like,
Yeah, what's
what's
happening
going
to
on?
me? Yeah.
What's happening to me? Yeah, really confusing time, really stressful time, I'd say.
I imagine that's really forms a big part now of what you offer now in your support to all the ladies
Oh,
that you
for sure.
coach.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. If I ever come across people that I can support that are younger and about to come into this, I always do try and take some time to talk things through for them and see if they've got any questions that they want answering. I mean, that would be a fantastic service, wouldn't it? If you could have that opportunity to actually talk to other women who've been through
Been
similar
there
at
and
such
done
a
it.
young.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would have been super helpful for me. But yeah, I think that's where one of the reasons that's got me to doing what I'm doing now is just how much I want to help other people not have a similar experience to what I had, because there's so many better ways of approaching it than my experience was anyway.
I know when we've spoken like outside of this, like when we were getting prepped, you were saying about how much of like a little bubble, like a little cocoon you're in
Yeah.
when you're having your treatment, because you're getting a lot of support, and it's almost when you're cut loose, you've had your treatment and you're out there in the real world, that maybe like post treatment, where really you're kind of left to your own devices, really, and that might be where you need that continued support.
Yeah, spot on again. I mean, a lot of people kind of refer to it as a cliff edge at the end
Mm,
of treatment, that you've had your hand held the whole way there, and then treatment ends and you're kind of out the system. And then it's like, you're just looking around going, well, what am I supposed to do now? You've handed over a lot of your control, essentially, haven't you, to other people?
mm.
You're being told, this is what's wrong. This is where you've got to go to get it treated. This is what time, what date, this is why. And you feel very, yeah, looked after. You feel, okay, I know what's going on. I know what I need to fight and how to fight it. And your brain doesn't necessarily catch up, does it? So when you're in that survival mode, like I say, you put your head down, you get through it, you just keep going, keep going, keep going. I think it takes the brain a lot longer to catch up with what's
And that's
actually
kind of
happened
that
to you.
void that you filled now, isn't it, with your role, your coaching. You're kind of filling that gap for women.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do, because yeah, that was for me, that's when I floundered, was that post-treatment bit. I didn't know what I knew. I wanted to make changes. I knew I didn't feel the same, and I really wanted to, take a look at my life and maybe choose a different career, or, relationships get
Mm,
affected, how I felt physically, mentally, it was all affected. And I suddenly had this desperate urge to live like a super healthy life, but I didn't really know how. So I feel there was a lot of confusion for me around that time, feeling like a different person when you're 35, 36 years old. You know, you're still in the middle of socializing and going out and friends and all these different things that was your life before. And then you come out the other end, you're like, oh, that's quite hard for me now in some ways. So I thought, this is why I want to do the coaching that I'm doing, the life coaching aimed at women in that period of time. Not necessarily saying young like myself,
mm.
but anyone period of time post treatment, we're like, I'm not quite feeling how I thought I would, need a bit of support to kind of get where they want to be in life.
Yeah, because from what you're describing, it's a very different experience of menopause, maybe, to what's considered like, your typical menopause, if you like.
Yeah, yeah, totally. As you obviously know really well, when you go into your typical, I don't like to say normal, because who's
Mm,
normal, but
exactly.
it's a gradual decline, isn't it, of
Mm,
hormones, a period of years. You have your perimenopause years, with menopause brought on by cancer, and that can be in loads of different ways. Often women will go into menopause when they're having chemo. There's radiation treatments for gynae
mm.
cancers. You can take your hormone blockers, or in my case, obviously having surgical menopause. That boom, you're in it.
Yeah,
It
that
is
must be
acute.
really, really tough.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you go in that surgery, particularly around the age I was, with my full set of hormones that I was used
Yeah.
to living, and then literally woke up without them. And you still get a small amount coming from your adrenals, but it's a really,
Mhm.
really
It's
small
minimal, isn't
amount.
it? Yeah.
Yeah. So the onset of, the normal symptoms and side effects that we know about menopause can often be severe, because it's just bam, like the body doesn't know what's just happened
No.
to you. So those impacts are just like, poof, they're immediate, and they can be really severe. And I'm talking generally, obviously everybody has got their own experience of this, but generally that is the case. And I think as well, sometimes women who've already gone through menopause and then have treatment for breast cancer are quite shocked, because that treatment kind of puts them back essentially into menopause. So they can
Yeah.
start into like a different kind of menopause. So they can start experience all the symptoms and side effects that they were like, phew, I'd got rid of those.
Yeah.
They can start coming back. And often as well, when women have been on HRT and then been told to come off HRT to have their treatment,
Yeah.
same thing. You're like, oh, back
Yeah.
into it again. And
It's
it'd be really
hard, isn't it?
disheartening for those women. Yeah, really disheartening.
And that's really where I think working someone like you who has that experience there's some real benefits, I think, for women that are going through that now. So you've got 5 different ways to improve women's experience. So should we go through those now then? So I think the first one we've got here is about getting prepared for your surgery.
Yeah. It's that thing that I wish I had thought of far, far more. But I mean, when I went through this, it was nearly 9 years ago. And even the time between then and now, the information that's out there on menopause is so much more. There's so much
Yeah.
more. So years ago, it wasn't like that, honestly. I couldn't find a huge amount, and everything I did find was, aimed at the older lady. It wasn't really aimed at someone that was going through treatment
Yeah.
or done it surgically. So even if I had searched and searched, I think I still would have come up a bit short, but we can't say that so much anymore. I'm very, very happy about that.
And even that in of itself must have made you feel worse, because it's like this. It's not, you don't identify with the information that's out there. It's like completely
Yeah.
different, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You're like, where's my people?
Yeah, yeah,
Where's my people? So yeah, getting prepared though, I really wish I had spent a lot more time, understanding. I just, in my head, all I kept thinking was, I know I have to have this done. Like, I have to do
mm,
this, for my health, for my survival, and definitely put the blinkers on. So I would say, I would really advise, get prepared, have a look at, what some of the longer term impacts are on your health, heart, bone,
mm,
those kind of impacts, brain health, so that you can come to your doctor before you have your surgery and talk through some of these concerns and different ways that they can potentially, give you the knowledge to start mitigating those
yeah.
long-term
To have a
effects.
plan for when you're coming out the other side, that's yeah. It puts you
Yeah,
back in the driving seat, doesn't it? Like, which is like really, I think feeling out of control is probably like one of the worst bits of it, isn't it? That it's
yeah, yeah. Oh, absolutely. And when you don't have that knowledge and you're in those meetings with the doctors, it's very easy to kind of look at them as, oh, you're the person that knows everything. I have to be
yeah,
guided 100% by everything that you've said and you've told me. But, as we know with menopause, the knowledge isn't really out there still as much as it should
mm,
be. I have had to advocate for myself so much when it came to menopause. Shocking, shocking amount. Because I didn't know much about it. I honestly thought I was coming into this and the doctors knew it all and they would all be telling me what to do. And
mm,
it really, really has shocked me how much I've had to advocate for myself. And a lot of the information that they're running on, as we know, is maybe outdated or
mm.
disproven now. So you have to go in there prepared and know what you want to ask, write this list of questions out that you want to know so that you can, like you say, feel control back in the driver's seat with what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that, like you've touched on it, that shared decision making, I think regardless of whether you're post-treatment or any woman going through menopause, I think
Yeah.
it's important to understand that it's not something that's just going to be happening to you, that it's a joint
Yeah.
decision, and it's in that knowledge to hand so you can have those discussions and empower yourself.
Yeah. And so that you don't get so blindsided by it. After it's
Mm,
happened, I felt completely blindsided by some of the side effects, particularly I'd say the mental health aspect of
mm,
it. I hadn't realized that the impact it would have on, I was so riddled with anxiety after my
mm,
surgery. And it was like a physical thing. I could feel it like crawling all over me. And I just didn't know that that was going to happen.
mm.
So I wasn't prepared and I didn't know. Well, it made the anxiety worse
Yeah, it makes it a
because
lot more scary, doesn't it? Yeah, totally
yeah,
with you
I
on
was
that.
really scared. I was so scared of what was happening to me because I didn't know that that was
Part of it.
potential. So,
Yeah. Um,
yeah.
And then your next tip is about requesting access to a menopause specialist.
Yeah, which is all of our right to do. The only issue I would find
Wait time.
is there's not that many about, which is
Mm.
quite sad. I was really, really lucky to have one at a local hospital, but I didn't realise at that time how much of a rarity that was and how lucky I actually was. But it wasn't automatic. I wasn't automatically referred to her, which I really, really should have been at my age.
Yeah, that's surprising, isn't it?
Yeah, that is surprising. I had to again kind of push for that and really advocate for that for myself. And then I managed to get an appointment, but wait lists again are pretty huge at the
Mm.
moment. But I would still say it is your right. So if you've got one at your local hospital, get yourself straight away on the waiting list. You can
Yeah.
ask to be on others as well. It doesn't have to be your own if they don't supply one. You can go further afield.
And actually, that's something, sorry, that you'd think you would be put on that list, like,
Yeah.
prior to even having your treatment so that but that's something that doesn't happen automatically then. You need to, like, really push for that.
Well, that didn't for me. Again, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I can't talk for everybody.
Mm.
Some people I'm sure have had some marvelous experiences of going through this and felt very well supported. I think this is just more aimed at maybe some of the people that had a similar experience to me
Mm.
and to let them know that is their right to have it.
Yeah, okay, and I think that's a really good tip as well that you mentioned there about going to other counties, that you don't
Yeah.
have to go to your own area if it means that you can get seen quicker, essentially.
Yeah, because like I said, not everybody's got one. So if there's a hospital a few miles down the road that does, then try and get yourself onto that list. Or even if, a lot of GP surgeries now do have menopause specialists as well, which has been a great advancement because I think, GPs haven't always got the best reputation for how they handle menopause. So if your clinic's got a specialist in it, that would also be really, really useful for you.
Yeah,
Really, really
I think the thing with GP surgeries that I certainly still see with my clients that I get in is it is so, even if they have a specialist in, it's so hit and miss, I think, about service
Yeah.
that they get. And it's very much going back to what you were saying about actually arming yourself with the knowledge prior to going in so you can ask those questions that you want to ask. Yeah, I think,
Yeah.
unfortunately, what I see in practice is still a pretty dire service actually for a lot of
Yeah,
my
it's dire
clients.
service. And again, like you say, you can get fobbed off very easily,
Yeah.
can't you? Yeah.
Okay, and
Yeah.
then this next tip that you got, I thought was really important about sharing with the people in your life about
Yeah.
your experience and what it's gonna be like.
Yeah, so key because people don't, and people, why would they, know the difference between a natural menopause and one that's been brought on by cancer treatment. So, and the fact that menopause isn't necessarily still that much of an open conversation in families,
Mm.
means that when you say, "Oh, I'm going to go into menopause," they might just think, "Oh, maybe she'll just be moody for a little while, and then
Yeah,
it'll
just
be all
gonna have
right."
a few hot flushes and that's gonna be it.
And that's going to be it. Or even if one of your female relatives has been through menopause, but maybe didn't have such a hard time of it, or had very unique their own
Mm.
version of it, where they'll think that also applies to you. I don't think it's ever out of malice, but there can be a degree of ignorance, I'd say, around menopause and particularly around cancer induced in terms of how acute it is, how severe the symptoms can be,
Mm.
the long-term effects on health. So I think if you can come to your loved ones or your friends and family and really talk to them honestly about your experience, this is what this means, this is how it's different, this is what the long-term impacts are, but also really like being clear about what you need for
Mm.
that, because you are going to need support, you are going to need help, and it's your friends and family that you're around all the time. So it would be ideal if you can get a good degree of support from them. But if you haven't filled them in on how you're feeling, on how you're doing, on what this means, it's really difficult for them to know
Yeah.
what's to give you.
I was wondering, you might be able to answer this. I mean, is there, like, couples support? It isn't, you're not
Yeah.
an island on your own, is it? Because it's you, if you're in a relationship, it's you and your partner essentially going through
Yeah.
this experience together. Does that kind of support exist?
I wouldn't say that I've seen it particularly around menopause, cancer induced
Mm.
menopause. I've seen it in terms of support for partners when someone's going through cancer treatment, but I don't ever see it very clear. And it's actually something that I've thought about quite a few times, is like how I could potentially offer the support to friends and family as well, because like you say, you go through it together. You're so like my husband knows. I'm so proud of him. He knows everything about menopause at this point. He really does. And he was telling me that he went out for a drink with a couple of his female friends a few months ago, and they were saying that they thought maybe they'd started going to perimenopause, and he was like, right, I mean, like,
I know all about this.
just in my heart. I was so proud. And that is because I have TMI'd at every single point of this about what it feels like and what it is. But I wish they had a bit more support. I really do. I know that on Dr. Louise Newsom's site, Balance, she's got a downloadable guide for partners, for people going through menopause, which I think is really essential. So go and give that a download. It's helpful.
Oh, that's a really good tip. What else have we got here? So, seeking support from others in a similar situation.
Yeah. So key for me, because it was very isolating, I would say. Because I was only 30, I didn't have any friends who had even
Not
begun
talking about it, are you? You're not having that conversation, going out for a coffee and talking about menopause. It's something way off in the future, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And probably something they didn't particularly want to talk about. I don't know. We all look forward to. I don't know, but now again, like you say, times have changed, and I can definitely see this conversation is being had among friends. And now my friends are older, and they're starting to tip into a bit of perimenopause. I love that they're coming to me to have some of these conversations.
You're the font of all knowledge now for all your friends. Brilliant.
Yeah. But at the time, because I was so young and I knew nothing really about menopause, I felt so alone with it. I really did. And it just made me feel like I was going mad, because it's such a bum for the soul, isn't it, when you meet someone who's been through something similar to you and they're like, oh, I know just how you feel. That's exactly what I went through. And then you suddenly just feels like you breathe a big sigh of relief almost.
Definitely.
Like, I'm not going mad.
I think that's so
it's
powerful, actually, getting together. When you get people together that have been through similar experiences, it's so powerful. What you've just described is like breathing that sigh of relief. I think just like knowing you're not on your own is so important.
So important. And the way I did it, because I didn't know anybody like personally, I went online to get the support that I needed. So there's some really, really great forums. Breast Cancer Now, a great one. Macmillan's got a great one. There's where you can just sit and chat, to other women, and you can contribute as much as you want or don't want. Not everybody wants to be putting their business up on an online forum, but you can also look at it from the other end, where you can just say like forum stalking, where you're just sitting and reading other people's comments and what they've posted and then how they've been supported underneath, and you can just get such a wealth of information that way. So I just think like we're amazing. We will always find a solution, a way through. We always want to help, don't we? We want to advise. We want to kind of share our little pearls of wisdom. And sometimes you might think going to the doctor about one side effect, I'm not going to bother them, or I can't be bothered to sit and wait for an hour, on the wait list to get my GP appointment. And you pop onto a forum and you'll get about 20 different answers within 5 minutes. And you can sit and try what you want or don't want from it. I think it's absolutely amazing.
Brilliant. So we'll maybe list some of those in the notes afterwards so people can go and find them.
Yeah, I will put.
What else have we got? So your last one is looking at lifestyle changes that people need to make.
Yeah, and it's a biggie. It's definitely a biggie. I mean, I don't know how you find when you're doing your menopause coaching, but there can be a real reluctance that, especially when it's come through cancer, that you have this kind of need, like you have to make some changes. And that bring a little bit of resentment up sometimes. I knew that I had to make some changes to my life to make menopause easier, to make how I felt easier. But I remember having a bit of reluctance, like, exercise. I think
that's the same, as you say. I think that's the same for every woman going through that transition, because it's like you are forced essentially to make some changes that you might not necessarily want to make.
Yeah.
Changes, and how your body looks. I think that hits women quite hard, physical kind of change. Because we're used to looking like a certain way. But there's a lot of little things as well. Like it impacts every single aspect of your life.
Yeah, It massively does. And I'm such a key person for talking about taking a holistic approach to it.
Mm.
I did have to look at all the aspects. I had to look at my physical
Yeah.
health, I had to look at nutrition, my emotional health, how I communicate with people. Like, I made so many changes. Like, looking back to who I was pre-menopause to now, I
Yeah.
feel like a totally different person because of that. And I have to admit, like, I did go pretty full on into it. I think when you've had cancer, it does kind of, it forces you to really like.
But you're like
So yeah,
actively like fighting, aren't you? Like, so you're still in
yeah,
that like fight mode, aren't you?
yeah, that's exactly it. So yeah, when you've gone through cancer and you do find yourself in this place where you're obviously desperate for it to never come back. So you
Mm.
start looking, how can I change? What can I do? How can I help myself? And it can be quite tempting to go a little bit too full hog into it, like I did. But I think over time I've pulled it back because I've realised that as much as I do want to make lifestyle changes, and I have made them, you've also got to have some joy
It's
in life.
balance, isn't it? You've got to live still. Yeah.
You've got to live. Yeah, you've got to, and you want to feel like yourself still. But there are some real key changes that you can make to your lifestyle that I promise makes this menopause time so
Mm.
much easier. It really does. You know, simple hacks like reducing the amount of alcohol that you drink, which is hard. So white wine was my best friend.
Yeah.
But I have learned that if I drink less white wine, I feel so much better. I just do. So at some point, I've got to accept that change, you know?
Yeah, it is. And spot on. These really simple changes do make a big difference. Um,
Yeah, you
it's
really
huge.
do.
And I think certainly that I see with my clients is, and you probably see this with yours as well, is I think they're quite shocked by how big an impact those
Mhm.
little small tweaks and changes actually have on how they feel.
Yeah, yeah. It's so easy, isn't it, to just keep living life the way you've always lived it. You know, this
Mm.
is my habit. This is what I do. This is what I eat, drink, you know, how I move my body. Cancer is such a shock to the system. It really forces you to, you know, rethink a lot of these things,
Yeah.
and menopause too. And I'd say I never exercised pre cancer or menopause. It wasn't my jam. Now I really do. And that's for me been the biggest change that I've seen, this
Mm.
impact. And since I learned about the long term effects of going into a cancer induced menopause, you know, like I said earlier, particularly on your heart health and your bone health,
Yeah.
just it, I think of it as essential now. It's not something I've really got a choice over. Like, if I want my
Yeah.
bones to stay strong, if I want my heart to stay healthy, I have to do some cardio. I have to do strength training, you
Yeah.
know, 2 to 3 times. I have to not be too sedentary. Easier said than done. FYI. Who doesn't love to sit on the sofa of an evening? I
No,
have
I
to for
totally
me.
hear you. Totally. Yeah, but
Yeah,
it becomes part of your, I think, way of being because it makes you feel good.
yeah, it
All
does.
these little changes that you make,
Yeah,
you can
yeah.
continue them because it makes you feel good.
Makes me feel good. And the emotional side as well, you know, I've taken up meditation, I've taken up breath work, which we've talked about before.
Mm.
And the breath work, so powerful. I wish I'd found that earlier when I was saying, you know, how badly I suffered with anxiety straight after going into menopause. I did rely on meditation, but that breath work,
Yeah,
powerful stuff.
it's really powerful. And I think a lot of people focus on meditation, but actually, the
Mm.
research is showing that breathwork is like a lot more powerful. And I think
Yeah,
people find it easier actually, because a lot of people are put off by meditation, by the whole thing of to empty your mind, not focus on anything, which people actually find really, really hard to do. So I think focusing on the breath, you've actually got something to think about while you're actually doing it, haven't you? So it's a lot,
yeah.
I think it's a lot more accessible for people.
Yeah, I agree. And yeah, I've been reading those studies as well, and so powerful because I mean, when you're going into menopause because you're being treated for cancer, you know, going through cancer, your nervous system is
Yeah,
so heightened.
yeah,
You're in this place of, well, it is trauma
yeah,
effectively, isn't it? You're trauma place. So to then enter menopause as well, when you haven't got
yeah.
access to HRT to potentially even you out, you know, you're coming at menopause from a place where your stress levels are so high, like your
Mm,
cortisol is so up, and that completely affects how you
yeah,
respond to menopause and these side effects and symptoms.
definitely.
Learning ways that we can bring this back down, ground ourselves, and try and calm
And it's
what's going
putting you in the
on.
driving seat again, isn't it? Because you've got that tool, haven't you, that you can use so you feel a lot better because there's something you can actively do to make yourself feel
Yeah,
better again.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I always say is get your toolkit together, understand what really works for you because it is unique. It's
Mm,
easy to say, go out and exercise, change your diet. So easy to do, is it? So
yeah,
it is you. You're going to have to find what actually works for you and then make a toolkit up. So those moments when you're not feeling great, you can just flick through it and be like, okay, this is what I do. This is what always brings me back to
yeah,
feeling okay.
yeah. It's being open to trying things out, isn't it? As you say, so you know what makes you feel better, what you respond to, because we are all unique.
And, just be so thankful that the info is out there now. If you want to find out about best nutrition for menopause, it's out there. It's easy to find.
Yeah,
Same for exercise, same for, breath work, meditation. It's all there. I love the idea of that kind of pick a mix in it, trying things, seeing what
yeah,
works. Does it work? How do I feel? What impact did this have? Move on to the next. And eventually you'll get there. You'll find what works for you.
yeah, definitely. I think that's great advice. Okay, so let's wrap that up there then. So I think that's been wonderfully informative, Kirstie. Thank you so much for your insights. So, Kirstie has kindly created a workbook, a guide to wellness in cancer-induced menopause, which you can access on her website, which is breastcancercoaching.co.uk. If you do /menopause guide, you'll be able to access that. If you'd like to follow Kirstie or find out a little bit more about her, you can find her on Instagram at Breast Cancer Coaching. I think that's everything for today. So as always, thanks for listening and watching if you're on YouTube, and the comments are open for your thoughts. So I'll see you there. Thanks so much, Kirstie. Love chatting with you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Cheers.
Bye.